Okay, so it's 2 o'clock and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Hopefully Councillor McCabe is there. Yes, he is. Okay, so have a resolution to adopt the agenda in front of you. So I have a recommendation that the agenda for the July 11th, 2022 regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? So moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All in favor? Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Councillor Yates?
No.
Councillor Burke?
No.
Councillor McCabe?
I have none.
And I have none either. So that leaves us. Now we have to recess to move into the public meeting. So I have a recommendation in front of me that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the July 11th, 2022 regular meeting of council for the purpose of holding a public meeting under the Planning Act. Do I list all of those, Karen? Brian Smith, zoning bylaw amendment, Wade Maroon, zoning bylaw amendment, and Richard Pillar, zoning bylaw amendment. Do I have a motion, a mover and a seconder for that? So moved by Councillor Yates, seconded by Councillor Burke, and all in favor?
Councillor Chair, we're having a little bit of technical issues in hearing you. Is anybody else having a problem with that?
Great.
Kind of cutting out a bit here and there.
And I know you have to turn away from the camera to look at your notes. It does work better when you're speaking right into the computer face. So
Okay, can you hear me now?
it's much better. Yes.
Do you want, like, I can sign out and change laptops if that's gonna help. Oh.
That sounded like Jimi Hendrix.
I turned it up as far as it could go. I'll try to turn my other laptop. Okay. So we're calling the public meeting to order. Does anyone have any declaration of pecuniary interest?
Lisa, it may be that we might need to take the time for you to log in on your other computer.
Okay.
Just while we're waiting for Lisa to do that, Scott, I just want to acknowledge that I know you're in the waiting room, and I'll move you into the meeting at the appropriate time. Thanks for joining us.
Maybe here's down.
Matt, how's the sound on mine now?
How's the sound? Sorry. Yours is good. There was some background noise there from someone. I don't know who.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it must be your background. It must be done now.
You had a good week for holidays, Dan.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah. Didn't do too much, just a few little things here and there.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Sounds better here at this end.
Sorry, I had to move all my files over too.
Sorry, Lisa, thanks.
Okay. Now, where did we leave off? Because I've completely forgotten, Karen.
You were just reading off the recommendation, you had talked about the public meeting items that we were gonna hear. You had got through the pecuniary list of, to close our pecuniary interest, and you had listed the applications, and so now we're at the Brian Smith application.
Okay. Okay, so how was notice given for this meeting?
So go back to your public meeting agenda, and you want to read out the location of the subject land and the purpose and effect of the application.
Okay, so location of the land subject to the proposed amendment.
Yes.
The wrong one is described as 8046 line 8 concession 9 part lot 1 part lot 2 with civic address of 9131 road 14. The property is 115.8 hectares in size, and the location is shown on the map attached. The purpose and effect of the application, the purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the retained lands from agricultural zone to site-specific agricultural acre zone. I'm getting a lot of feedback now. The application is seeking to rezone the retained agricultural portion of the property to prohibit any future residential development. Additionally, the applicant is seeking to rezone the severed lands from agricultural A zone to site-specific agricultural 852 zone to permit a reduced rear yard setback for the existing dwelling on the severed parcel. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B88/22 that was granted provisional approval by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. The consent will sever a 0.8 hectare rural residential parcel with an existing dwelling and shed. A 115 hectare agricultural parcel will be retained with 3 sheds. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. Okay. So how was notice given for this public meeting?
And notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject land, as well as they were sent to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on June 15th, 2022.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got Matthew on here. Could you present this to us, please?
Will do. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to members of council and the public. So again, through you, Chair, before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. The applicant has received conditional approval on severance application B8821 under the surplus farm dwelling policies. And as you may know, under these policies, a standard condition is placed that the retained farmlands are rezoned to prevent any future residential. One note for this file, so the applicant has made a last-minute request to change the original request for the minimum rear yard setback relief that was originally 7.6 meters, which has since been changed in the bylaw to 5.6 meters for the rear yard setback. And again, this is reflected in the bylaw as well. So all in all, the application conforms to the zoning bylaw, official plan, and provincial policies, and planning staff have no concerns with the application. Thanks.
If I could just add, the bylaw that you see on your agenda does have the original request in it, but the bylaw that will be signed after the meeting has the amended request in it.
Has any further correspondence been received in respect of this application?
Nothing that other than what's listed on the agenda, which is from the GRCA, and they have no objections.
Okay, and this bylaw will be considered at the council meeting immediately following this meeting. Any persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must request and notify in writing by notifying the clerk. So is anyone from the public registered to speak?
No, they are not, but Mr. Buseman is here on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, okay. Okay, so do we have any comments from the applicant, Mr. Buseman?
Thank you, Chair. The application's been pretty straightforward. Surplus farm resident severance. We need the rezoning so that the rest of the farm is rezoned to not have a dwelling. I think we did originally put in the request for 5.6 meters setback. It was probably a typo in the initial draft. So appreciate staff quickly fixing that to a 5.6 rear yard setback for the house on the severed piece. It's a pretty straightforward application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, seeing that, I'm gonna open the floor to any comments or questions from council. Does anyone have any comments?
I do not, Councillor Hearn.
Okay. All right, seeing no comments. I don't have anything else in your notes, Karen, so what do I do now?
We'll just, we'll move on to the next application.
That's what I thought. I was just
Yep.
double checking.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so seeing none, thank you, Mr. Buseman. We're moving on to the next application. The location of the subject land is The land subject to the proposed amendment is described as North Part Lot 25, Concession 5 at the civic address of 7527 Side Road 9 West. The property is 40.4 hectares in size, and the location is shown on the map attached. Purpose and effect of the application is to rezone the subject lands from agricultural A zone to site-specific A2 zone. The application is seeking to rezone the retained agricultural portion of the property to prohibit any future residential development. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B29/22 that was granted provisional approval by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. The consent will sever a 0.93 hectare rural residential parcel with an existing dwelling and a garage. A 40.4 hectare vacant agricultural parcel will be retained. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
You can ask me about notice first. Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as the applicable agencies, and signage was posted on June 15, 2022.
Okay. Matthew, would you like to present the application, please?
Sure. So again, thank you through you, Chair. Before you today is a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the subject lands from agricultural to agricultural site specific. As you mentioned, it's received conditional approval for severance application B2922 under the surplus farm policies. Once again, standard condition to rezone the retained lands to prohibit any future residential. And all in all, the application conforms to the zoning bylaw, official plan, and provincial policies, and planning staff have no concerns. Thanks.
Okay. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Nothing other than what's listed on the agenda, which is from the Grand River Conservation Authority, and they have no objections.
Thank you. Okay, this bylaw will be considered at the council meeting immediately following this meeting, and any persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must request in writing by notifying the clerk. So I'm to open the floor for questions or comments from the applicant and the public. So does the applicant have any comments?
Again, this is a straightforward application, surplus farm resident severance, and as identified in the earlier presentations, the severance has been approved. And the primary goal is to rezone the farm to not have a residence. Again, happy to answer any questions or comments. Thank you.
No one from the public is registered, Karen? Okay. Okay, so I'm opening to any comments and questions from council. Does anyone have any questions? No. I don't either. I'm pretty familiar with it right behind me. Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on to the third application. Screen here. Here, Andy does this so well. Okay, location of the subject land to the proposed amendment is described as North Part Lot 13, Concession 3 with a civic address of 7751 Side Road 6 East. The property is 38.45 hectares in size, and the location is shown on the map attached. The purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone the subject lands from agricultural A zone to site-specific A2 zone. This application is seeking to rezone the retained agricultural portion of the property to prohibit any future residential development. This rezoning is a condition of severance application B116/21 that was granted provisional approval by the Wellington County Land Division Committee. The consent will sever a 0.45 hectare rural residential parcel with an existing dwelling and shop. A 38 hectare vacant agricultural parcel will be retained. Additional relief may be considered at this meeting. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed within 120 meters of the subject property and to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on June 15, 2022.
Thank you. Okay, so Matthew?
Thank you, Chair. And before you today is another zoning bylaw amendment through the surplus farm building policies. In the interest of sounding like a broken record, it's essentially the same as the last. And ultimately, planning staff have no concerns with the application.
Is any further correspondence been received with regards to this application?
Nothing other than what's listed on the agenda, which is from the GRCA, and they have no objections.
Okay, so this bylaw will be considered at the council meeting immediately following the meeting. Any person wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must request in writing by notifying the clerk. So I'll open the floor to comments from the applicant or the public. Does the applicant have any comments with respect to this application?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to be as efficient as Matthew. It's the same as the other applications, surplus farm residence severance, and straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Does council have any questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I guess, and I need a resolution to adjourn the public meeting. Is there a resolution in front of me, Karen?
It will be on your regular agenda. Oh, sorry, no, wrong, sorry. It's on your public meeting agenda at the back on the last page,
I was looking for
just
it.
under adjournment. And you just need to ask for mover and seconder to adjourn it at 2:22.
Okay, now why don't we just do that? I can't find it. Okay, so I have a recommendation, the public meeting of July 11th, 2022 be adjourned at 2:22 p.m. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? So moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Burke, and all in favor. So let's carry. So
And so now we're moving back to your
Yep.
regular agenda.
Yep, so I have a recommendation here that the council, the corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the July 11th, 2022 regular council meeting at 2:23 p.m. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Yates and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Burke, and all those in favor? So that's carried. Okay, so then we have to move on to the bylaws. So we do all those individually, Karen?
Yes, under the public meeting ones, we do them individually.
Okay, so I have a recommendation in front of you for the first one, the bylaw number 80-22 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-1 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Do I have a mover for that? A mover and a seconder for that. So moved by Councillor McCabe and seconded by Councillor Yake, and all those in favor? Okay. Second one, I have a recommendation, bylaw number 81-22 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North. Be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that one? Moved by Councillor Burke and seconded by Councillor Yates. All those in favor? It's carried. So on to the third one, that bylaw number 0-22 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 66-01 being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Wellington North be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Yake, seconded by Councillor McCabe, and all those in favor? It's carried.
Chair Hearn, I just wanted to explain to Councillor Yake, I put you on mute, that when you're off mute, there seems to be some feedback coming from your end. So in case you're wondering why I stuck you back on mute, that's why.
Okay, so moving on to adoption of the minutes of council, the public meeting, I have a recommendation in front of you that the minutes of the special meeting of council held on June 17th, 2022, the special meeting of council, the regular meeting of council, and the public meeting held on June 27th, 2022, and the special meeting of council held on June 29th, 2022 be adopted as circulated. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that one? It have to be you, Councillor McCabe. I can't see, or Councillor Yates, sorry. All those in favor? So it was moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Yates.
I'm sorry, Chair Hearn, did you say you can't see Dan?
Oh, I couldn't see Councillor McCabe. He's back.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just had a hiccup there. It slowed down a bit.
Okay, so we've adopted the minutes. No business arising from the minutes. Mount Forest pool replacement. So moving on to that discussion, I believe we have some of the comments that came from the last meeting was the architect would be invited back to see if there were any areas where we could use a lower cost design. Is he here, or do we?
Yes, Scott Robinson is here with us.
Hello. Okay, so I'm just going to open this out to the floor for anyone who, yes, Matt?
No, and yeah, through you, Chair Hearn, I would just suggest that at the first meeting in June, it was requested that the architect attend a meeting so that council could ask some questions. What I would like to qualify that by saying is the architect is kind of the design expert, not necessarily the cost expert. And I think some of the questions that might come forward would be about cost, but certainly Scott is here and staff is here to help answer questions. That's all I would do as a preamble, Chair Hearn.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to that? Councillor Burke?
So I'll go ahead first. So with the design that we have, and there was a design concept presented to the Recreation Committee. If we're looking at a beach entry, do we need the stairs and the ramp beside the beach entry? Would that reduce some of the concrete costs? I just feel that with the ramp, the stairs, and the beach entry, that it seems to be a little bit redundant.
Yeah, I'm not sure which option you're looking at, but certainly we can incorporate the barrier-free ramp within the beach entry itself and save a bit of square footage there with concrete. We would recommend going with the steps just for ease of entry into the pool in different areas of the pool, so everybody's not using the same area.
Okay, Councillor McCabe?
So there, you'd have, like, say the beach entrance is here, stairs would be somewhere over this way. Is that what you're saying, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. And we could incorporate a railing to sort of carve off a ramp within that beach entry if we needed to.
Yeah, carry on, Councillor McCabe.
All right, thanks. And I should say thanks, Scott, for taking the time to be here. Is there any other places that we can kind of shave or cut some costs? aside, like I like the idea that Councillor Burke had about that, like, you know, switching up the beach entry and stairs.
Well, I guess the question really is like, how much are you looking to shave off? You know, we've got very, very recent costing on a almost identical project down in Welland County. And, you know, their projects had a bathhouse and very similar pool and deck area and amenities. And it closed tenders about maybe 3 weeks ago at just over $7 million. And we had a costing report done in August of 2021. And that was a Class B estimate, so very detailed, very accurate. It came in at 6.4 million. And our cost consultants are telling us to carry, you know, escalation of about 15% per year. So when we actually looked at the August estimate and the May tender is, you know, 9 months later, so escalation would be in around 11%, which put us at $7.1 million. So that project, although it was much more than was originally budgeted, I'll say pre-COVID, kind of 2019 numbers at, you know, 5.75 million, certainly over that number. But unfortunately, that's where the market is today. So, you know, if you're saying, you know, you need to save 500,000 to get you on budget, you know, we could look at, you know, minimizing deck size, minimizing some of the amenities around the pool, maybe making the pool a bit smaller, reducing maybe the size of the bathhouse as well. So if we're looking at small, I'll say small incremental savings, yeah, it's possible. You know, if we're looking in the millions of dollars, like $2 million, $3 million, you know, it's almost impossible. You know, if that was if you had a budget of, you know, 3 or 4 million, then I would say you could do everything, but, you know, but no bathhouse, no amenities kind of thing. The pool numbers that came in on that project, just for the pool itself, like nothing else, was $3.2 million. And then the deck and amenities was another 400,000. So just, you know, the outdoor pool alone is coming in around $3.6 million. So it's a bit, the market's still a bit volatile. Everybody's still busy. We're not getting great pricing. So I don't know if, I mean, like I said, those numbers are really recent and consistent with, you know, the other pools that we've been doing as well. You know, just we're doing one in Burlington now, which Matt and I had looked at, and it came in at 6.7, I think was the number, and that was last year. So I guess the question, Steve, really is just, you know, what is the budget you're trying to hit? If that's a fair question, maybe it's not. Maybe
That's a great question, Scott.
Maybe we're well over that, and yeah, but yeah.
So the concept, sorry if I can continue.
Yeah, carry on.
Sorry, Lisa, thank you.
Unless there's an objection from the rest of council.
So the concept that we have right now, is that still like 5 to 5.5? Is that a real number still?
No.
I would say that's probably on the low side of where we'd come at. I think, you know, the next logical step would be to, you know, finish this schematic design, which, you know, we haven't really looked at the bathhouse in detail. mechanical areas. And, we would tighten up things as much as possible around the deck, which is kind of what, we just did another little sketch for Matt, which does that. And then we would take it to a cost consultant and get a class C estimate or class D plus kind of thing. And I think we'd have a very clear picture of where we would be at.
So you're probably saying it's would it be another 15% from the quote that we have now? Just
Yes.
if you were to ballpark it.
Yes.
I don't know how we're going to pay for it. Jesus.
I saw Counselor Burke's hand up.
Sorry.
Thank you, Lisa. So my question is when we have, and I believe I know the answer to it. So I have two questions. When we have the sunshades and we have this trellis, the folks that would be using those would be part of the bather load. And also the pool that we're proposing in this design that I have up here that was part of the agenda. What is the bather load for this pool? And is it comparable to the pool that the existing pool here in Mount Forest?
Yeah, we haven't done an exact calculation for that last option for the bather load, but it would be, yes, very similar, perhaps a bit more than your pool now.
Okay. And the folks that are on the deck would be considered part of the bather load underneath the trellis and the shades.
Correct. Yeah, the bather load is calculated on the surface area of the pool, as well as the amount of shower heads and washrooms available, and the depth of the pool. It's a bit of a convoluted calculation, but yes,
Okay,
basically
thanks.
the size of the pool.
Any thoughts from anyone else? Matt?
Just, I think lifeguards factor into the amount of bathers you can have too.
Mhm.
Is all I would say to council.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, Counselor McCabe.
I'm still struggling with how we're going to pay for all of this, and then now there's more cost, as we go further on. I got my question, I think, to each one of the counselors here is like, how are we going to pay for this? What amount are we going to put on the taxpayers to like basically pay off? I know we can hopefully get grants and donations and everything like that. And as further on in the agenda, there's going to be naming rights, but how much can the taxpayers bear? We got to figure that number out, and I think, and then figure out how much we can fundraise. I know, yeah, our committee is busy doing a bunch of fundraising now, but with this extra, probably 15% of Scott has suggested that's coming. How do we adjust for that? How do we adjust for how are we going to pay for this?
I saw Counselor Burke's hand up. So Sherry?
Yeah, so it sort of goes hand in hand with what Steve is saying. And my question is if we haven't really done a calculation or really looked at what the costs are going to be for the bathhouse, because I heard that we don't really know what size it is, and we don't really know what size the pool is, but it's comparable to that size. I guess my question is the sooner we figure out what the actual costs are, because I just feel like we're going around in a circle. We think the concept that we have here is 5.5 million. Now it could be more, and it might be less, depending on the scale of the bathhouse and the pool and whether we take away some of the decking. So I think, in my estimation, we need to know what the parameters or the dimensions of the bathhouse are going to be, and what it sort of entail, like what it entails. Like, we don't have any measurements or distances on this plan whatsoever. So I think it goes back to your point, Steve. Yeah, how are we going to pay for it? But I don't really think, in my opinion, that we really have a good understanding of what we're building and what the cost is going to be.
Yeah, Matt, I saw your hand up.
Yep, yeah, through you, Chair Hearn. So the three concepts that were presented all had like a bathhouse and a pool tank, I call it, associated with them. And the recommendation from the architect is that all of them were very similar as far as it's a $5.5 million price tag. Staff have had a look at the bathhouse, and to your point, we might want to, you know, if anything, we'd want to increase it, which would increase the price. But I think from a staff standpoint, I wanted to bring a preferred concept to a recreation committee last week, but I didn't feel comfortable based on the conversation that's happening at council right now as it relates to this project in general. Certainly, if council can come up with, this is what we're willing to spend, or direct staff to say, create a preferred design, period. That makes it easier on my end. Yeah, that would be my interjection to the conversation.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I think going in this kind of the same vein that Sherry and I were going in, like, we've got to nail this down and move forward. We've got to find the final costs. We got to figure out how we're going to pay for it, or how much the tax burden will be, or taxpayers' burden will be, and then how much we can, if we can fundraise. Like, say it's, just for sake of argument, say we split it right down the middle. I don't know if we can raise that much fundraising. And I don't know that number. We've got to get at, well, we've got to figure out what we're going to build, like you had said, Sherry. And yeah, preferred concept, Matt, might be one of the ways to go. And so we literally have something concrete that we can, like, seriously bite into. And I know we talk about this every meeting for an hour or more, but yeah, we've got to quit spinning the wheels and figure out what the price is going to be and how much we can afford, and how we're going to pay for it. I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Well, what I would suggest is, yeah, we would work with your staff to come up with that preferred option, and meet with the aquatics group to see what is required within that bathhouse above and beyond the code requirements for water closets and shower heads. And you know, with the understanding we have a very stretched budget here, so it's very we're gonna have to really work at minimizing, you know, the size of the deck space and those kind of things, sort of value engineer, if you will, a bit of the preferred concept, and then, you know, finish schematic design. I mean, we're kind of halfway there anyway, and send it out for pricing, and then you've got a hard number, and you know what the amount of fundraising is you're going to need. You know what's the pool's going to cost, the amenities are going to cost, the building's going to cost, the site works are going to cost. You know, hopefully we've got, I'm assuming, you know, the site works are probably not that much, maybe 250,000, because we've got services readily available. But you know, we'll get all that information with, I'll say, minimal investment on your side to get us that ultimately what we want, that Class D cost estimate. And I think that's, that's what's happened down in Welland too. Once they had that number, they were comfortable going out for tender with it. We've had other situations where, the county or the townships have taken the drawings right to tender phase and then said, we're going to wait 6 months, see if the market slows down. A lot of people are reading the tea leaves about recessions upcoming. So, that's an option too, to take it to that step and be ready. And be ready if there is funding opportunities too. So you basically have a shovel-ready package. And then when the time is right, or if you get that funding, or if there's a stimulus package, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think we got to get to that number, and then as that's always the key, I think, with a lot of government funding or grants is shovel-ready projects, and I think we have to have that hard number, figure out how we're going to pay for it, get the grants rolling, and somehow figure out what's going to be fundraised and what's going to be on the burden of the taxpayers too.
Go ahead, Dan.
So I guess to you, Steve, I agree that we've been talking in circles for the last couple of months. I don't think we've made as much progress as what or we all hope that we have. But I mean, how do you, or what do you recommend that how do we sit down and get this thing nailed down? I mean, we can't do this by meeting every 2 weeks and continuing to talk in circles. We need to get everybody that's involved and get this thing, get it nailed down. I mean, the costs are going to continue to go up, and if we continue to talk in circles, then we're going to be a long way from getting this project done.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, Dan, I agree, and I think hopefully, like what Matt and Scott were saying, is we can get a close enough to a final number that we can understand what the cost is going to be. And then once we know that, after going through, like if we can, have one entrance for accessibility and a staircase over on the other side, whatever size of deck, size of bathhouse, like we literally have to nail all that kind of stuff down. I think get the number, and then like lock us in a room and figure it out till we get it done. Because this will just continue to keep going. We'll continue to keep meeting like this every 2 weeks, and we got to get at it. And I think getting the final number, or close to final number as we can, I think is where we go, or how we get there, I guess.
I agree. We're kind of at a stage where we don't know what we don't know, and it kind of seems like there's a consensus from council with regards to this. Do we need a motion or a direction to kind of proceed with this? So I'm looking for advice. Thank you, Matt.
Yep, and this might be bad advice. So, but what I'm hearing is that I'm thinking for rec committee in September, and I haven't talked to Scott yet because this is still developing, but we would bring kind of the preferred concept and then an estimate of what the preferred concept would cost. But that's kind of what I'm thinking is the next steps, but maybe council wants it to come to council too. Go
ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, I know the rec council is not meeting for a little while, but I would gladly call a meeting to find that out and then get it in front of council as soon as we can, if that's what needs to be, or we just go directly, like you said, Matt, right to council.
Counselor Burke?
Yeah, I don't want to wait till September.
No,
Like, that's just another six weeks gone.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just something I'd have to talk to Scott about as far as his availability. Because everything takes time, I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of the heavy lifting done with the three concepts. You know, we're still going to require to meet with staff. Is there a specific date, you know, that we can work backwards from as far as, yes, if we had, you know, the final design and the Class D cost estimate by whatever date, we could move forward, or
Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, I don't have a final certain date in mind. My suggestion would be the sooner the better. Not to put any pressure on staff or yourself, Scott, but I think my timeline would be as soon as you can get it to council.
okay. Yeah, just off the top of my head, you know, once we get the drawings complete, which I think it's hard because we can move pretty fast, but then it's like, okay, let's meet, and then all of a sudden somebody's on holidays, and you know, it's a bit tricky in the summer, but we can certainly move fairly quickly. I'm guessing we probably need 2 or 3 meetings with staff to hammer this stuff out, and I'm guessing that's probably going to take, you know, 4 to 5 weeks. You know, we'd be looking at getting the thing done by, you know, mid-August kind of thing. And then I know my cost consultants are 3 weeks once they have the drawings. So yeah, I think we'd be looking at probably 6 to 8 weeks before that final number is there. You know, if we could try to expedite it a bit. Again, depends on how many meetings we need to have with staff. You know, certainly getting a design that's close and a budget that's based on something realistic. And as we move into hopefully the next phase of the drawings, a detailed design, you know, it still can be evolutionary. So, you know, we don't have to have every single thing figured out at this point.
That puts us into September.
Yeah, if we pushed, I think we could get you something by the end of August.
Any thoughts on that? Do we want it to come right to council, or does it go to rec? Like,
No, I would say go right to council. I mean, Dan and I sit on rec, so I don't think that'd be just be an extra step, I think.
and Councillor Burke's pretty involved with it too, and so is the mayor. So yeah, I tend to agree. So do we set a target date? Like, I don't know when our council meetings are. Yeah, go ahead, Darren.
Thank you, Councillor Hearn. I think staff here are pretty dedicated to moving forward. So rather than set a date, maybe we could just say it as soon as we can, realizing that probably the end of August, September is realistic. But I think if just staff had that direction, we could do our best.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks. I'm just looking at August, Karen. Are we meeting on the 8th and the 22nd? Or is it the 15th and the 29th? Sorry, I just don't have the calendar in front of me.
It's the 15th and 29th.
Okay. So is it realistic to maybe be able to get this stuff by August 29th? Matt, Darren, and Scott?
I would say I'd rather it not be specified that way, but that's what we'll be shooting for. And if we can come on the 15th, that's what we do too. Like yeah, it's just sometimes when you start working through the logistics of scheduling everyone and that kind of thing, but the 29th is what we'll be aiming for. If we can get earlier, we'll get earlier. If we don't make that date, it'll be into September, unfortunately, Councillor McCabe.
Okay.
I think someone else had their hand. Was that you, Darren, or did you?
That was me, Councillor Hearn. I was going to say exactly the same thing Matt said.
Do we need some sort of direction or a resolution or anything to do that? I don't think so.
We'll just show direction in the minutes that staff were directed to, bring the concept and the costing back to a future meeting of council. And again, once you put a date in it, then it's, if you can't make the date, then your resolution doesn't stand, but yeah.
Okay, that's good with everybody. Great. Okay, so I guess that does that conclude, unless anyone has anything else to say with regards to that, I guess that concludes that discussion. Unless anyone else has anything else to add regarding to the pool, this would be the time to do it. So. All right. Okay, do we need any resolutions to continue on with our meeting, Karen?
No, not at this point. You're going to ask now for items to be pulled for separate discussion.
Okay. All right, so we're moving on to items.
Sorry, Scott. Sorry, Chair Hearn. Scott has his hand up.
Hi, sorry, Scott. I'm fairly new to this.
May I be dismissed?
Yes, and thank you for coming.
Okay, excellent. Good luck. We'll chat soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, all right, back to identification of items requiring separate discussion. Anyone have anything they want to pull? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I would like 5A, the report on naming and renaming policy for municipal parks and facilities.
Okay, anything from anyone else? That's it?
Actually, I might do 4A too, if you don't mind, sorry.
Anyone else have anything? I'm just checking to see what I had here. Okay, so I just have 4A and 5A. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so then we need
You need to go to page 5 and there's a resolution there to adopt all the other items. For a resolution to adopt all the ones that hasn't been identified. It's about halfway down that page.
okay. Okay, so I have a recommendation that all items listed under items for consideration on the July 11th, 2022 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Sherry. And Steve, was that your hand? Okay, seconded by Steve. All in favor? Okay. Consideration of items requiring separate discussion.
passage. So moving on to 4A then.
And you'll put the motion on the floor and then they'll discuss it. Have it moved and seconded, and then after discussion, you'll call the vote.
So the recommendation is that the council, the corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report OPS 2022-20, being a report on the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP Greenstream, and further that the council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw and enter into the agreement. So I ask for a mover and a seconder, Karen.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Yake, and all those in favor? Okay, carried.
Oh, so, okay, that's good. You wanted your discussion before you call your vote. but
Oh,
you can-
sorry.
It's okay, you can have your discussion now.
Okay. We'll have discussion now. That was pulled by Steve, so I guess you must have something to discuss.
Yeah, and through you, Chair Hearn, thank you. I think this is a great news story for Mount Forest and the existing water tower. My only question was, do we know when it will be done or when it will start?
Yep, go ahead, Matt.
Yep, through you, Chair Hearn. Next spring, Councillor McCabe, is when we're anticipating doing it. We're trying to, it's either a fall or a spring project from a water usage standpoint. So given that we're signing up to this agreement now, we'll have to go through a competitive tender process. And then next spring is when we actually hope to implement. And it'll be, it's a bit of a project. It's something different, but it'll also prepare the standpipe for the next 30 years, kind of like rehabilitated for the next 30 years.
Yep, Steve.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a great commitment on the province and the feds, and of course our municipality as well. So that's going to be internal and external rehabilitation. Is that correct?
Yeah, like a recoating, yes, of paint. And they sandblast it and then they repaint it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is great, and it's going to be needed quickly. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any comments from anyone else? Okay, so we have a mover. Oh, yep, go ahead, Dan.
Just, I guess, to you, Matt. So that, are we still budget-wise? We were at 950. Next spring, will it be, by the time they get to do the work, will it be more?
Yeah, through you, Chair Hearn. Probably it'll be more. 950 was a 2021 budget number. So just based on inflation, I would expect it will be more until we go to the market. It's hard to say for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, so great question, Dan, and thanks for that answer too, Matt. So with that in mind, it'll only be the amount that the township puts in that will probably go up. Like the funding from the province and the feds won't be adjusted for inflation, will it?
Yeah, through you, Chair Hearn. The agreement sets maximums as it relates to the federal and provincial contribution, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All right, so I had a mover and a seconder, so let's do this correctly. All in favor? Is that? Do it afterwards rather than ahead. Okay, so moving on to 5A, which is the report on naming rights. So I have a recommendation that the council, the corporation of the Township of Wellington North, receive for information report CLK 2022-16, being a report on naming and renaming policy for municipal parks and facilities. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation?
Yep.
Okay, moved by Councillor McCabe, seconded by Sherry Burke, and then I'll open that to discussion.
Councillor McCabe?
Yeah, sorry, and thanks, and through you, Chair Hearn. I think this was great. There's a lot of information to to go through. And it's a good report. And I know I'm not usually one to try to delay things, but I would love a little bit more time just to, I think, digest some of this. I wasn't able to get online at all on Friday, and just had a look through it on obviously Thursday night, kind of a bit on Saturday and Sunday, and then a little bit more of a refresher. So I would like to go through it a little bit more. And then I'm wondering, with the reports from the different municipalities and towns, were there any costs put together at any level of the naming rights that or the policies that they have in here? So I didn't see any. And so I guess my question would be, if we go through this again, and if you guys are fine for moving forward, this is great. I would like to try and put some numbers to certain levels. And I don't know, when it comes right to the Mount Forest pool, do we set a minimum of, just like, say, just for sake of argument, it's a 150,000 for naming rights, and Lisa Hearn ponies up and she's the first come, first serve? Or does it go to an auction where we have a reserve of 150,000 for the rights? And then it's an open market after that. And then how do we put a timeline with every different level?
Karen?
So through you, Chair Hearn, that level of detail would be determined by council. So for instance, I don't know, every 20 years, the O'Keefe Center, that I still call it, gets a new name because they pay millions and millions of dollars. And a lot of these policies that are in there, it's like they're different sized cities, so they've got different financial capacities. So, the city of Owen Sound, their amounts would probably be very different than ours. But what's important to get into policies, besides the financial numbers that council is going to want to put in there, are those other considerations, like how are people going to submit it? How often are you going to let them rename them? Do you want public support with this or not? If someone puts their name in, who are you going to allow to name it? So there's all of that level of detail, but what you're talking about, Steve, the actual amount, that would be clearly up to council. I mean,
Okay.
and would it be a park is different than your name on the side of the arena? I mean, those are all the things, like, it's just not something that will be brought back in one draft, right? It'll be, we'll get the bones of it put together, and the council will need to go and consider, and we'll give you all those considerations. Are you gonna a splash pad just out there? I know they're already named, but is that a different thing than, again, your name on the side of the arena? And how long are you gonna let that stand? It's not, in this day and age, it's not sort of a one-time thing anymore, and you get your name on it forever.
Yeah. And I think one of the perfect examples is the Donald family ball field at the old Mount Forest Fairgrounds. I think that's a great start, or somewhere where we can push off from, I think.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, I would sort of agree with Steve. I think that this is too important to just pass without maybe a little bit further discussion. However, I think there, as outlined in some of the other policies, I think there are some great criteria and some guidelines in how you maybe change the name, or if it's of great significance. I'm going to use a different example. I'm going to use things that the Lions Club have named. Do you go back and do you rechange that? I don't think so. I think that that's an ongoing group, service group, where maybe some of the smaller things or something that doesn't have a name of that is within the whole community. But yeah, I'd like to have some further conversations about this policy, and because I'd like to make sure that we get it right and we get it right the first time.
Go ahead, Karen.
So an example of that could be, you know, if you've got a group coming, if you've got a group coming that are fully funding it, absolutely, that would be their project. If you've got a pool that's being probably mostly funded by the municipality, that would have a different criteria.
Right.
So you kind of got to draft your policy sort of for not every eventuality, but the most that you can think about for sure. And then another consideration is, do you want a committee to decide on that, or do you want it to be a council decision? So there's all different things that you need to think about.
Right.
I think Steve had his hand up, and then we'll go to Dan.
No, go ahead, Dan. I've said one thing already. You first.
I was just gonna say, I think this is a great, it's a great start. There's certainly lots of information that we can use to develop our own policy here. I think it's important that we, you know, look at naming, you know, parks and facilities and assets, so to speak. And I think we should, it may take a little bit of time, as most things do with government, but I agree with what Sherry has said. Let's do it. Let's do it right. Make sure it's right, and improve it if we have to. So I think it's a great start, and it's a good document here to move forward with.
Steve, did you have a comment, or was it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and through you, Chair Hearn, I think, yeah, I think it's incumbent upon us, I guess would be the great word to use, to have a policy in effect for this, so that we don't have to go through 2 council meetings or 3 council meetings and a rec meeting to figure out that Sherry wants to name the splash pad after, you know, that just for an example, after her family. Like, we should have a policy in place that people will know, they'll see it, it's a public document, they'll say, and it'll stipulate timelines. And yeah, it's probably going to take a little bit. I mean, we had at the rec council meeting, we had the Lions come forward with wanting to name the lower leisure hall at the Mount Forest Sportsplex. And I think this is one of the things that kind of bump started this. And so, yeah, we gotta have a policy that next time someone comes and says, yeah, we want to, as Karen said, pay for the whole room, pay for the whole splash pad. Well, here's what you get for X amount.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
If I could just suggest, like, there is a lot of information there to digest. The recommendation in this report is just to receive it for information. I could start work on the bones of one for us. That gives you a couple weeks to look at what's in this agenda. And the recommendation in the report on the next one would just to be receive it. So at least we've got a start. You can tell me what you like about it, what you don't like about what's in there. We can go back and revise it a little more. I think that's staff-wise, that would be a better way for us to go than bring you this thing that we think is totally comprehensive at the end. And someone on council is like, oh, we didn't want that, or you totally missed this. You know, and I'm not saying that this is go on for 6 months, but at least you'll have a framework to start from that we can sort of go from there.
Everyone think of that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. I think we need to have somewhere to start, and it gets us working on something. Do we need to make any, like, this recommendation is just to receive your report? Do we need to have a a resolution or anything, or just, it's just a direction to?
Yeah,
you
it would be
to
just
working on
direction.
it?
So if you pass this resolution, just to receive it for information, and the minutes will show that staff were directed to bring a draft, a first draft to a future meeting of council. And again, when that report comes, it'll just be to receive it for information.
Okay. Any comments from anyone else before we wrap this up and I call the vote? Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation? Okay, that's carried. Okay. Okay, so what are we on to now here? Notice of motion?
Yes, you're at notice of motion.
Okay, does anyone have any notices of a notice of motion today? Yep, Councilor McCabe?
And thank you, and through you, Chair Hearn, it's kind of in the same vein of what we were just chatting about, and I would like to make a notice of motion that the Council of the Township of Wellington North name the splash pad at the Mount Forest Fairgrounds property the McDonald Swint splash pad. And I know we can't really do much about it tonight or this afternoon, but it will come back to us in 2 weeks. And I know through some conversations with Matt and with George, the president right now of the Lions, that they would like to try and get this named by the end of September. I don't need to go through the rec council for us to approve it and then go in front of council. So I would like to make that motion for the next meeting.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to do with regard to that, Karen? It's just.
So
it's
we've
been
got
clear?
we've got the notice and it'll show up under business arising on July 25th.
Okay, does anyone else have a notice of motion this afternoon? Okay, seeing none, moving on to community group meeting reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report? Yeah, go Dan.
Just, I'm sure everybody's heard about the COVID outbreak at the Louise Marshall Hospital, the situation that's going on there. So the hospital staff will keep the community updated as to what's going on there and how it's what's happening. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that there is an issue there, and there are going to be some emergency room closures coming up again due to just staffing issues and a whole array of other issues. So just if you happen to get any questions, then we can take it from there. But yeah, some couple of dire things going on at the local hospital right at the moment.
Yeah, I read this afternoon that it would be closed Saturday evening and Sunday evening and overnight.
Yeah,
I was in the Wellington Advertiser, so.
yeah. So
Anyone
Yeah.
else have any community group meeting reports?
I'm all good, thank you.
No. Okay. Surprised by that. Okay, so now we're moving on to resolution bylaws. Is there a resolution for that here, Karen?
Yes, it's in on page 6 of your agenda cover sheets. It's about a third of the way down. And the recommendation would be to pass both of those bylaws in one resolution.
Thanks, I see it now. Okay, so I have a recommendation that bylaw number 79-22 and 83-22 be read a first, second, third time and enacted. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Steve and Dan, all those in favor? So that's carried. So the cultural moment. Let me take my turn at reading the cultural moment. Okay, so the cultural moment for July the 11th celebrates the Mount Forest Fireworks Festival. Deeply embedded in Wellington North's local culture is the Mount Forest Fireworks Festival, a community-wide 4-day event that has become a signature event locally as well as provincially for the past 20 years. Always the third weekend in July, many make their way to the area either by visiting friends and family, traveling in on their RVs, or spending the weekend at a nearby campground. So much so that this festival has been garnered as a top 100 festival for 11 of its 20 years by Festival and Events Ontario. Over the years, the festival's enticement builds as more attractions are added and the crowds grow. Today, the Mount Forest Fireworks Festival features amusements all weekend long, entertainment, music, and array of tastes. You can visibly view the local culture as many community groups, volunteer residents, and business sponsors each add their own element to the weekend-long celebrations. During a recent survey of Wellington North residents completed as part of our cultural plan update in 2021, 75% of respondents considered the Mount Forest Fireworks Festival to be one of the top 2 tangible cultural assets in the Township of Wellington North. Since the festival's inception, it has played host to one of the largest classic car shows in Canada. The traditional small town Main Street is closed off to drivers and is open to pedestrians as thousands fill the artery and view over 500 classic cars lining the drag. The skies are ignited with sparkling colors and the sounds of crackles, booms, and ahs as a spectacular fireworks display fills the overhead sky on Saturday evening, with a small teaser show taking place this year on Friday evening to commemorate our 20th season. There's always great entertainment and attractions that includes a bit of everything for all ages, which makes this festival, well, spectacular. And the date is July 14th to the 17th, and the website is there at mountforestfireworks.ca. And this was submitted by Crystal Seifert and Sharon Wenger of the Mount Forest Fireworks Festival. Thank you for that. Okay, so we have our resolution for the confirming bylaw. Where is that, Karen?
Right below the cultural moment on page 6 of 7, almost at the bottom. And you're just going to ask for a mover and seconder to pass bylaw 8422 being the bylaw to confirm today's meeting.
Not finding it.
I can pop it up on the screen here if you want.
Thanks, Karen, in advance.
Oh, that's okay. Just let me get up here. Can you see that?
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so I have a recommendation in front of you that bylaw number 84-22 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular council meeting held on July 11th, 2022 be read a first, second, third time and enacted. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Looking, okay, Councillor McCabe and Councillor Yake, and all those in favor? Okay,
Then,
so
Chair Hearn, just before you do the resolution to adjourn, these are the list of the upcoming meetings and events.
okay, so we have some things ahead of us. Wellington North Farmers Market, of course, it's open right now, Saturday, June 25th to the 24th. Chamber of Commerce meeting. It's today. I didn't realize that. That's wonderful.
Good job. We
Okay.
read that.
I was told there wasn't going to be one this week, so it's a surprise to me. Mount Forest Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, Tuesday. Mount Forest Fireworks Festival, Thursday, July the 14th, is Thursday, July 14th to Sunday, July 17th. Wellington North Farmers Market, and Arthur BIA meeting Wednesday, July the 20th. And our next regular council meetings are July 25th and August 15th at 7 and 2 p.m. You still have the motion for adjournment in front of me? Okay. So
Yeah, it's back there on the screen.
Okay, so I have a recommendation in front of you that the regular council meeting of July 11th, 2022, and I don't think that should be twice, but be adjourned at 3:26 p.m. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Burke and seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? So that's carried. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Well done. Didn't hit Dan's record, but
No one can.
Nobody can chase that monster down.
Have a good week.
Yeah, thank you.
everyone be well.
Bye-bye.